All right, mabibi na mabwana, karibuni tena to this edition of the One Mic Show. Na ni furaha kujiunga nanyi wapenzi wasikilizaji. We're streaming live on Facebook from Kilimanjaro studios outside Washington, D.C. We are also live on YouTube, so please remember to share our live streams. Now, later tonight in the social segment, we will be discussing why the process of divorce is so difficult. Yani kuachana, ukiachwa achika. Why do some people find it hard to let go when your partner does not want you anymore? So stay tuned for that conversation and more. Na bila kusahau, tapokea mziki toka DJ wetu machachari mleta habari DJ OmoshFaya na kudunda kule viwanjani na Micah jezi nambari 7 mgongoni akituletea habari za michezo. So moja kwa moja toka Kilimanjaro studios ni mimi mtangazaji na mwanahabari wako mpendwa Ali Badawy. Wengi wananiita mteule na wakwetu wananiita mjukuu wa Masai. Because I'm Kenyan by blood, American by design, Masai by choice. Sichagui, sikagui, na sibagui. Karibuni tena.
Now, let's talk politics.
Now, once again, this hour in news and politics, we are having a discussion on the just concluded party nominations in Kenya. We'll also talk about an upcoming visit to the U.S. by a Kenyan dignitary, so stay tuned for that. And then we'll talk about Kenyans and deadlines, Huduma numbers, e-passports, and Simcard registrations. So stay tuned for that and more. I'm your politics anchor, Ali Badawy. It's Friday the 15th of April, 2022, and we are coming to you live from Kilimanjaro studios outside of Washington, D.C. So please remember to subscribe to our One Mic Show YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram at One Mic Show. On panel with me tonight is Mr. One Mic Kamakawa. We have our resident DJ OmoshFaya. Micah will also be joining us via Zoom, and our super producer is none other than Mubelo Bandio. And without much further ado, we want to get started right away. And tonight is going to be one of those random Fridays, you know, like for those who've been One Mic Show fans for the longest time. Wanakumbuka, you know, there was a time when we used to have a lot of random Fridays before things got serious. Before things got serious.
No, before things got structured.
Before things structured that's the word I was looking for. That's the word I was looking for. I just wasn't thinking about before things got structured. We had a lot of random Fridays, and random Fridays, you know, had its good parts, and then it had its drawbacks too.
It's mother than your parts.
Yeah, so we moved to this structured part. So right now we want you to start, you know, like giving us you know, like topics you want to speak about in the comment section. So start dropping comments right now. This is your Friday. Wale wasi walikuwa nasema hatutaki kuongea juu ya topics zile wao wanataka. This is your opportunity today, and it's anything, kitu chochote, whether it's rocket science or whether it's mineral exploration or whether it's the way the COVID pandemic affected the slave queen economy. Ni kitu chochote, andika hapo. Chora hapo nataka kujua. I can see Pablo is already ndani pale, anasema visit by Rao looming. Yeah.
Ako ndani kama Simcard.
Yuko ndani kama Simcard. Na sijui kama yake iko registered, lakini yuko ndani kama
Simcard. That's another
Simcard.
story.
Yeah.
Before we suffered some hit laugh last week. That is also something that we are going to discuss, but it's pending. But go ahead, Maliza your thoughts.
Hiti who?
Wacha Omosh kwanza ingie. Omosh ameingia anasema
I'm wondering what this hiti. What did he say?
Hitilafu ya mitambo.
Oh.
Okay.
What happened was.
Yeah.
You mean wahala ya nini? Okay.
Wait, Langa story.
Okay. All right. Na Pablo pia anasema bora tu nothing about Lakers. And we also want to welcome Micah. Micah is joining us via Zoom.
Why can't we talk about the Lakers?
Well, Pablo will tell us. Pablo will tell us why.
Ukitaka kuchapwa na kina Micah na Ali.
Pablo will tell us why.
No,
but
I mean,
what happened to
Mimi actually I agreed that the Lakers are not going to win anything. After 10 games into the season, nikasema it's okay. I forgot about it. Wacha nikwambie mimi mpira mchezo sports haiwezi nipea character development between Manchester United, FC, Lakers, Ferrari. Nimepigwa character development the last 7 years. I know how to see failure from far. Alafu ongeze Ravens hapo.
No, but you know Ravens, I would not call Ravens a failure. I just say Ravens are in a build-up.
No, Ravens is season semi-fail, almost semi-fail, and also character development.
Got you.
I have expectations at the beginning of the season.
Understood.
Yeah, Ravens walikuwa na big expectations at the beginning of the season.
See Ravens hizo timu zote mo support big expectations. Alafu somewhere in there they forget what they do. So we can talk about the Lakers. Maybe it's your Gopi, Lakers, whatever.
So Micah,
It's
just
fine.
ask if
Ni kuoga na kurudi soko.
do you have a Lakers jersey? Because I've never seen you wear a Lakers jersey. Yes.
I actually do have. I have, but they're old. I have 2 Kobe's, and I have a Derek Fisher jersey.
Wow.
Okay.
Sina LeBron na sina watu wengine.
Aya, me a LeBron tanunua the day when he's gonna give us, you know, like another title. Ile a pandemic, I don't know. It didn't feel the same. We want a real title.
But I also have a Lakers jersey. I have a Karl Malone Lakers jersey.
I have a Kobe jersey. You know, I have Karl Malone. That's a rare one. You know, I've never seen it. I have a Kobe jersey. You know, and to me,
Do you know another weird jersey I have? I have a Dwayne Wade jersey.
No, Dwayne Wade.
Dwayne Wade is not Nini.
No,
Dwayne Wade is not.
Dwayne Wade in Miami.
Yeah,
No,
he did his
that
thing.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
I think I also have a Tracy McGrady.
Yeah, but I
with
think
Orlando.
But I think issue yakina Dwayne Wade, you know, that class of 2003, that was one of the deepest drafts. Only second to ile yakina Jodo. Jodo's you know, draft was the deepest one. Ile kina Jodo, kina Barkley, kina Hakim. I think Patrick Ewing was also on that Boygani.
Number 1 draft.
Oh yeah.
Glenn Bias.
Yes.
You're the guy of Boston. Or who was
the
a
guy
Maryland
of
guy.
No, the one from Maryland who went to Boston.
Yes.
So that was a very deep draft, and then draft year 2003, which had LeBron, Carmelo Anthony, Dwayne Wade. I think Chris Paul was also in that draft, if I'm not mistaken. Chris Bosh. Yeah.
Chris Bosh, yeah.
So
was Nani in that? Dwight Howard?
No, Dwight Howard was after.
No, Howard alikuja nyuma yao.
Howard alikuja after.
He was number 1, right?
He was number 1. Yeah. Howard came in 2004, and I remember that Howard draft specifically because it was the last one that high school kids were allowed to enter into the draft, because Howard came straight from high school.
Yeah.
And then it was banned, and then Sanika, you know, like imerudishwa tena.
Was that the one with that guy of DC? Kwame something. Is that when Jordan?
No. Kwame Brown was back in 2001, I believe. I think it was 2001.
Okay.
Kwame Brown came before.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Kwame Brown came before, you know, which also shows that being the best player most likely means that you're not gonna be a great coach or team manager, as has been evidenced by Michael Jordan.
It's hard. It's hard. Okay, you know, transitioning from you playing the game into a coaching / front office is a totally different thing.
And team ownership.
If it's something that team ownership, Sasa, now that's dependent upon the owners, right? If the owners allow you to come into the circle, if they allow you to come into the circle, that's fine. And as long as you have certain people in place to do their job, then the team ownership part, to me, I think, is the easy part. The hard part is now that transitioning from becoming a player to a coach. And maybe you are not one who was, unajua kuna wale watu, when they were playing, they were already coaching.
Kina Steve Kerr.
So it was a natural. Umekuja ka umeingia box. And like Nani didn't coach, but it seems he had that leadership ability. Tyronn Lue.
Ty Lue, yeah.
You know, and and he won. You know, so it's not like, you know, he won as a player and won as a coach. And when you look at even his records with the teams, guys like him, Derek Fisher, what's his name? Doc Rivers.
Yeah.
Even Nani won. Bill Laimbeer. You remember Bill
Laimbeer? Yeah.
Bill
Laimbeer was also the Bad Boys of Detroit.
Because he was coaching in the WNBA.
Okay.
Yes, he was coaching in the WNBA. So he won on the WNBA side and then also won as a Nini. So there are some people who can transition, but you look at a guy like Nani, I don't see him as a coach. And I think he was given Bill Walton.
Luke Walton, mtoto wake.
No, the
father, the dad.
The dad. Yeah. You remember? I think the dad coached. Did he coach? Was it Lakers for a quick second?
But hata Mtoi alitry kucoach.
In fact, Mtoi was. Yeah, Mtoi alipewa. That one of ile when Mtoi wananichukua.
Yeah, and it was very terrible, you know, which also shows, you know, the race.
That's Sasa now.
The race issue when it comes to coaching, where you have rookie coaches like Steve Nash and Luke Walton being given jobs, when Mark Jackson, you know, a very great coach, the one who built the original Golden State Warriors, the one that started winning titles. He still doesn't have a job. But anyway, tuachane na sports sana. Let's go to some more pressing matters, and that's the recently concluded nominations. And I don't even know whether they are concluded or whether they are still ongoing. This was happening, like ODM did their nominations, like in a staggered way, and UDA, I think, held their nominations in one day. And as expected, premium tiers and
is that list true? The one that's been circulating?
Which list did you see? There's a lot of lists that have been circulated.
He has Mandago in there, Siji Waruguru, Siji I don't know who.
There's a couple of big names in UDA that have fallen.
Like, what? Are these guys serious?
There's a couple of big names in UDA that have fallen, which I think bodes well for UDA because it shows that they're not looking at sacred cows. Now the whole process of nomination, has been both sides have had issues. ODM,
correct,
UDA, and all other parties that were conducting nominations. They've all had issues. It has been my position for a very long time that political parties do not have the capacity to do nominations, because these nominations, they are mini election.
Correct.
They're essentially a mini election, and when you think about
it decides who's an
Yes, Micah.
Let me ask something. Last elections, nominations were done by the IEBC, right?
No, they were not done by the IEBC. So the thing is, political parties
I thought the parties paid the IBC to
as consultants
watch over the nomination process. Yes, and the whole nomination
parties,
voting process.
So that option,
last year it was more. It made last elections. It made more sense than what we're seeing now before.
That option was available, but parties. I don't think there's any major party that paid IBC to do their nominations because
you're saying this time around.
No, even last election.
I thought.
Even last election.
Last election?
No, IBC wasn't paid. So IBC is tasked with the responsibility of supervising, of not necessarily supervising, of just observing the nominations, but they're not, they're not obligated to hold the nominations for political parties. So a political party has to pay IEBC
correct. But
to do it on their behalf.
But we thought that IBC was actually paid, and they actually did.
They were paid because, and they did it for the parties.
No,
I remember, and Ali, I remember this cost. It was done like this because I remember, and most people are told if you register for us, if your name is registered for this party, no, you will not be in the nomination for this other party. And it caused a lot of issue with the register. The register was amended several times, and then when they did their nominations, they did them a week apart. And I remember it was to stop people who had voted in PNU in Uhuru to come again and then go and vote for in Kinababa's party and vice versa.
So
and I remember last year's nominations was, as much as people are complaining and Nini, it was so hard. There was no to see all the commotion that it's seeing right now because they were like, this is how the elections are going to be held, and this is how it was held, and people accepted. Maina Commander had to accept that ukweli wameshindwa. There was no other way out.
So here's the deal. IBC did not conduct nominations in 2017. They did not conduct the nominations. No. There was talk of them conducting the nominations. But the party nominations, they did not conduct those party nomination elections. There was talk about it, but the political parties, the major political parties, did not agree to it. So they did their own. Nominations, and that's the same thing that happened. Like in this round, they did their own nominations, and that's why I've always said, political parties don't have the capacity to do those nominations because, think about it, IBC prepares for 5 years to do an election. Let's say the nominations are maybe even 50% of the election. Political parties don't have, the time, the skill, and the manpower. They don't have that to be able to conduct these nominations, but they're still being allowed to do it.
And then, so they are voter rolls. What do they use for voter rolls, or how do you prove if, let's say, I'm a member but I'm not a card-carrying member? Does that mean that I don't get to vote?
So what's different from 2017 and 2022 is that the political last election, they were last election they were being allowed. The people were being allowed to, how do I put it? Last election, people were being allowed to vote in any of the primaries. This year, you have to belong to that political party as per the political party registrar. That's the difference, these nominations, and that's the reason why you're seeing these nominations. Turnout is very low because they're looking against the political party registrar.
And who's the person? Okay, so you're saying that if I am UDA and I'm the registrar of UDA, if you're not on our rolls, meaning you've not paid membership, nauna kadi.
So the registrar does not belong to any party. This is an independent body that's responsible
so
for.
nasema ule registrar ule wa parties is
Yes.
the one who has a membership. They actually have a membership.
They have a membership role for each party.
For each party.
Yes.
And that was presented by the party, or was it people having to go to the registrar?
No, you have to register as a
which
member.
means that those are the so-called card-carrying members.
You have to register as a member. You have to register as a member. It's not, nowadays it's not a card. You can go online and register to be UD, and that's why, remember, at some point people are complaining, like I've been registered to a random party called Chama Cha Mashinani and I've never registered.
Correct.
So there was a time when I think what was happening is that these parties, whenever there's these drives where people were being given money or whatever, you're being asked to sign certain things. But what people did do is that they were registering for political parties. So that's how,
Or before
people,
you're given your so-called brown envelope.
yes, and people were using, like ID numbers. There was a lot of people who are registered, like in political parties that they don't belong to.
So, so for instance, Uno right now could be a ODM member.
He could be a ODM member,
But, okay.
Yeah, he could be an ODM member. He even could be a Wiper member. Or
And he just doesn't
So
know
hold
that.
up, hold
or
up, hold up.
Tujibebe.
So Uno huwa uko farasi gani? Unajua hapa tunakuanga na farasi hapa. Uko farasi gani?
Well,
Ali never hides where he is.
I can answer for Uno for free.
Please go ahead. Go ahead
Eh?
and answer.
I can answer for Uno for free.
Go ahead and answer.
He's neutral. He will say he's
Uno is
neutral.
not neutral.
Eh?
There you go.
Uno is not neutral.
But
Uno is not neutral.
But if you give him a waru, will he eat it?
Eh?
No, Uno you
I'm just asking, if you give him a waru now, will he eat it?
I don't know if he's given a brown
Let me tell you
envelope.
something.
Okay,
And
but your
when
brown
Mike, I'm
envelope.
sorry if I make your relatives hate you,
Go ahead.
but Uno,
Uh,
for the first time, is supporting Baba.
Wow, I'm hearing that for the first time too. That's a
Mimi
revelation.
nimekwambia hii umesikia hapa akipigana anaweza watumia evidence.
Uno, can you confirm, is that true or is that a rumor that Micah is trying
No,
to
unajua,
spread?
I just say maybe because unajua there are many gofus. One of them might nyonga him.
let me.
And he's a community elder too.
Yes,
Yeah, he's a
yes.
community
Yuko kwa
elder.
ile chama ya watu kula mbuzi.
Yeah, he's a community elder. So Uno, speak for yourself.
Na hata hiyo chama.
Yes.
Even that one.
Yes.
Ni
Not
wababa pia.
everyone is on the same accord.
So what were divided this time?
People have got their preference.
Okay.
Yes.
Kuna
And
preference.
I'll say that.
And the
Now, what's your preference?
You don't worry about my preference. Don't worry about my preference. Because I can clearly state it right here.
Yes.
Lakini on that day,
Yeah.
when I go to
DC.
upper DC,
Yeah.
where I
First of all,
registered,
we are over here talking that we are going to DC. Have those roles even been confirmed? Have we even been
Where?
confirmed?
Where?
that
No,
women-
it's going to happen in May.
Where?
confirm?
Where?
My friend, no, I'm just telling you, before that thing happens,
It has to be verified.
if they can't verify that issue, we ain't doing nothing.
What do you mean?
Hiya.
No, there's a verification
Explain
process.
for this guy the process.
There's a verification process that's going to happen in May, and we're actually fighting for because IBC is going to come back for verification. So you can basically go there just to check to see if Uno Mike has
But
been
you know-
Yes,
Register.
hold on.
Yeah.
Wait.
Okay.
So hold on. So nilienda huko
Yes.
nikafanya registration
Yes,
nikapewa
yes.
kazi.
Na ukapewa
picha.
kadi.
Yes.
Na ukapigwa picha.
Of course.
Yes.
Na hata ukakunywa kachai.
Hiyo nilinyimwa,
depend.
lakini ni sawa tu.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Ati there has to be proof again.
It's verification.
Not proof.
It's not,
Not
proof.
proof.
Verification.
It's verification.
So
Like
what is verification?
Yeah.
so
You have to
verification.
make sure that your name
Yeah.
is
Oh,
okay.
sorry, it's
Your
authentication. It's authentication
Yeah,
on the
your
network.
demographics.
But that is still
Yeah,
to
like-
prove that
No, you
authentically.
no. You got a username, but you
Yeah.
have not been authenticated on the network. So now they're going to be authenticating you on the network in May.
Yeah.
Son of a
So your
twanga.
username
May-
may not be able to get you into the network until you get
Yeah.
So that, no,
Authentication.
so authentication means that you probably have to sign in first, change your password or whatever, authenticate.
Sasa,
You have to confirm. You have to get
You have
into
to
the
confirm.
network
yes,
and say, you know what?
Yes, confirm.
C Otieno,
yes,
That what I
Birth
see
date
here is me.
yes,
Mimi Niko,
yes.
I am Micah. Ngoja
Yeah.
nimsikie Micah.
son of a twang, guys.
No. I was telling Uno basically that what he needs to do is just to go, because they compare your name. If your name on the register is correct, na details zako zingine zote na uconfirm jina yako kwa register, ndio isikuwe siku ya kura umeenda kupiga kura
You're finding out
unaanza
at that
kupiga
point.
kelele hapa
Yeah,
jina yako
that
haiko hapo.
Muturi is Mufuri.
Is Mufuri.
Yes.
Yeah.
So hii authentication ndio pali utaona hiyo Muturi and Mufuri.
And when will that be? When will
May.
that be? May.
They're coming back
They're
now.
co- they're coming back in May.
again, and it's
Yeah.
an exercise of just basically checking against
Yeah,
whatever.
It's just checking against the physical register. So unaleta ID yako or whatever document you use to register,
The passport.
your passport,
Yes.
and then like
And my
wanaangalia,
card.
wanasema yes, your card. That card, by the way, that's just ni kitu tu ya kufloss nayo.
Ni kama huduma number.
It's like Huduma number. It's not
Huduma
a
number
requirement.
is-
It's to
like-
make you feel good.
It's like that badge that you're given to say you voted.
Yeah,
That sticker.
it means nothing.
I voted.
Yeah,
Yes,
you,
it's the
ca-
same
you
thing.
can't go back and use that as proof that I actually
Yes,
voted.
it's not even something you can remove as an identification factor for you having been on the rolls.
Atia.
Your ID or whatever identification
The
document you
passport.
used, whether it's a passport or it's your ID.
I use a passport.
Yes, that's the one that they would be
Because
checking
initially
against.
walikuwa wanazusha mambo ya if you're going to use your passport.
Yes, so
But
depends.
like,
It depends on when you went in there, right?
Yeah.
If you went in there after the ruling was made, then
Yeah.
they were taking IDs.
They are taking IDs too. But if you went before the
'Cause
ruling,
week two,
like when we
by week
we
two,
went, yeah,
They were already taking IDs. Week one, they were not taking IDs. In fact, even that card that you got, week one, they were not giving it.
yeah.
Ilikuwa kakaratasi, aka full scap like this.
Okay, na
that has
Pablo
IDs
anasema
here.
hii authentication inakula OneMic kichwa. I think KPMG is the one that is conducting audit of the voter registration register. Now the other critical moment for this upcoming August election will be now when the final numbers are released. Because like registration in Nairobi is still, or rather in Kenya, is still ongoing. You can go to your constituency office and still register if you're not registered to vote. So they're going to release a final roll that these are the
That
numbers
will have the
of,
actual group number of registered voters.
it will have the number of registered voters. Then there's some audits that have to be done. They take out, like people who died, and then there's also people who changed stations and all that. So that's what's
They'll
what's in
clean
the
up.
process
They'll
of
clean
happening.
up
They're gonna clean up.
Yeah, okay.
They're gonna clean up. So one of the things that we are still fighting for is for when IEBC comes back to the different locations where it registered people, that's DC, New York, and LA, in May, we are asking them to have 2 desks. One desk, your verification, and another desk
For
your registration. Because people in Nairobi are still registering concurrently as verification is going on. It's just us who tumefungiwa.
So that diaspora desk or diaspora station that they had, remember there was a diaspora station that they had for a short time that was available
Where?
in Nairobi. Remember?
Ile ofisi ya Itumbi.
No.
Ofisi ya Itumbi.
I think
it wasn't.
I think Omosh is talking about the one
No,
that was domiciled in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Is that the one?
You're talking
Yes.
about, it was domiciled in
yeah,
the Ministry
that's
of Foreign
the one,
Affairs.
yeah.
Yeah.
Is that one still available?
Like that was available under the coalition government. So
No. Okay. Let me I think I know what you're saying. What I'm trying to say is that remember when we we registered here.
yeah.
Then the 2-week period was done.
Yeah.
But they were still ongoing. They were still ongoing in I think Canada and
United Arab Emirates.
and yes,
Yeah.
because they started late.
Yes.
But they also said that if you're a diaspora person, you could still do it in Nairobi.
Huduma Center. I think you're talking about.
There was only
a
one. I
desk.
think there was a desk, right?
The GPO Huduma Center. If you're diasporan and you're not registered, you're in Nairobi, for example. That was
Yes.
for diasporans who had traveled at that particular time.
Correct.
So you could go to the Huduma Center and do your registration there. But here was the catch. For the diasporans who were already registered, because there were diasporans who were registered from 2017. There were certain locations like South Africa, and then you happen to be
Correct,
in
yes.
Nairobi.
Yes.
To change station, the issue was changing stations.
Yes.
If you wanted to change a station, let's say like if you already registered in Nairobi, you registered in Langata, let's say in 2017,
Yes.
and now you want to change to vote in the diaspora,
In South Africa.
then you can't do that at GPO. You
So
can't do that at
you
GPO.
would need to go to an actual office.
You would
larger
no, you would
office,
need to go to the place where you plan to vote, which is the diaspora,
which was not open.
which was not open. So that was a problem for people who wanted to do that. They could not do it at GPO. GPO was only taking new people,
New, not changes.
fresh, not changes. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was part
Let
of
me
the
use
problem.
language Uno will understand. So Uno, they were only doing new. They were not doing modifications.
But now, here is where we are gonna try to talk to. We're still trying to talk to IBC so that the people who are not registered in the diaspora
Yes.
will get
A
registered.
chance. They'll
Yeah.
get a chance.
Yes, and I want to remind the listeners that you're tuned into the Politics Hour of the OneMic Show. It's a rare random Friday, and tonight we were actually talking about the recently concluded nomination process in Kenya. And later in the hour, we are going to be talking about the Kenyans, why Kenyans have a complicated relationship with deadlines, Huduma numbers, e-passports, SIM cards, and many other things. So I want you to stay tuned for that. Please remember to share our live stream and like our Facebook page. We are also active on both Instagram and YouTube. So please remember to follow, subscribe, and keep spreading the word. But before we continue, Uno, please tell us, what do we have in store later in the social segment tonight?
Boss, unataka kuwasha moto? Hata kabla moto iwake.
Is that the...
In very simple terms,
Yes.
ukiachwa,
Chika.
Yeah.
ukiachwa,
No. Uno.
yes,
Siku hizi ukiwachwa,
eh,
enda oga rudi soko.
so ukiachwa, achika, enda uoge, urudi soko.
And the Wogi Urudi Soko. That's a
Unasikia?
new one.
Ukiachwa, achika, enda oga, urudi
Urudi
soko.
Rudi soko.
Ushikwapo shikamana.
Sasa hapo wewe. Hapo ni remix. Lakini ni sawa pia.
Yeah, na uangukapo lalama. Haya, sawa. Na Slay hapa anasema social segment yenyu ni fire, alafu mtu akanyage waya. So yeah, you've been warned.
Yeah, this mama, she doesn't give us a chance.
You've been warned.
Baka karaimu. Umesema karaimu ni fire
It's like-
alafu mkanyage waya.
It's like Slay akona zile majavelin, the weapons zile zimesink ile meli ya
wa Russia.
Warusi wale. Akona javelin, patriot, tomahawk, scud.
Sawa.
Wesley abiro chwad.
Matek na mangum na maflying kicks.
Slay,
But anyway,
Slays, she does not forgive.
She slays.
Yes.
Okay, sawa.
all right. Na Pablo hapa anasema Ali Badawi, when you say we when you say we are talking to IBC, who is we, please? So that's an interesting question.
I wasn't gonna say much, but
Me, I was leaving it alone so that
Yeah.
ishimo ulijiekea uingie.
Sasa,
Sasa,
yeah. Ajitoe.
Back to you, studio.
Back to you, studio.
So you see,
Leaders.
when it comes to these diaspora issues, I personally got to a point where like we've been talking so much because
And he calls me a Baltimore leader.
we like talking, not leader, elder. Those are two different things. But that's a
Still
story for
elder,
another day.
whatever. Ini elder.
Yeah.
Baba and sake.
So my thing was, I was like, is there any effectiveness to just engaging on social media when there's options of actually trying to see, what are the issues facing the people who are in position to make decision, and to try to influence what they do. And I'm proud to say, a group of us out here in the DMV, there's also a team in Nairobi of former diasporans where we were engaging. There's a group called the Center for Diaspora Affairs. If anyone wants to join us, please, inbox me or andika kwa comments hapo chini, we started, like formally engaging IBC. That's part of...
Mbona mimi si member hiyo group?
Because you are not interested. Now if you're interested, Ali has already
said
told
I'm
you,
not interested?
inbox him, Omera, inbox
Sasa
him.
ni inbox. Sasa ndo mimi naambia watu saizi muni inbox and I will add you to that group. Now you see what happens here. Part of the reason why, we were actually able to get people to vote was the pressure that we had put, from January 2021. Like that's when we started, like engaging them. And why not for that pressure, that first step. And I know there were all reasons people were giving for not registering, like the polling station is not in my bedroom, like there are reasons. But to us, it was very important for the process to start.
Correct.
Just so that it cannot be taken away.
It can be improved later on.
It can be improved because if it didn't start, like we would have been in the same position. So again, like all those interested, like Center for Diaspora Affairs, I will add you, like you have to be vetted before you're added there, but I'll put in a good name, a good word for you.
Put some comments.
Okay.
There's one that is very interesting.
Okay, aya. Sasa hapa kuna hizi za kina Slay wanatuchapa makombora. And then Nyokabi anasema ukipendwa pendeka pia. I like that one. I think I like that one.
I can put in a good word to Ali for you for a fee.
Aya, Mika amesema he can put in a good word to Ali. Hata hiyo that's a corruption statement. Hata mpaka nimeshindwa kuarticulate.
I want you to read the next comment.
Okay. Now
after
ukipendwa Ali ni deep state, and this is the one Mike Show saying it. Now, who on deep state? That's deep state that has hacked our system and is making comments. Alafu Slay anasema nataka kujoin. Pablo is interested. Benedict Susu interested. Muni inbox tafadhali. And I'm gonna, muni inbox na
wakwambiaje hi.
Hi inaweza kuja baadaye, but niambie kwa nini ni inbox. Mimi unajua hizo inbox za hi, by the way, unajua a lot of scammers in Kenya nowadays. That's how they check in. Hi, no, wachana na hizo za Wahindi.
It's normally hello friend.
Yeah, hizo hapo alafu mtu asemi story yake.
But bro, hold up. Wasn't Chiloba the guy who talked about those unwanted SMS changes, and that is why they were requiring people to register their SIM cards, and then now they have extended it.
Now we're gonna be talking about that.
So
yeah, we can talk about that.
Yes.
But yeah,
because even here, my device is registered with the do not call or whatever. It was already registered with the service provider, but you still get bootleg calls or whatever.
Yes, but hiyo hapo let's keep it pending for right now. We're gonna talk about that. So right now we wanna talk about
pending kama kuingia hiyo diaspora council.
Pending, yeah. Pending. Yeah. Na lazima uongee vizuri. Ukija uongee matope uingizwe. But
random. It's a random Friday.
It's a random Friday. This is what happens on random Fridays. Now we want to talk about, an upcoming trip of a Kenyan dignitary in the upcoming weeks. I think Pablo had already hinted on who it is.
You can tell the excitement in the studio.
No, we're just reporting. There's no excitement.
This
is just neutral reporting.
Like there you're smiling, but carry on, sir.
It's just I always smile.
Is he smiling with smiling with a oomph, or he's just smiling?
Boss, in oomph boom oomph.
No, I always smile. I'm neutral like you. Mini kawewe.
And hell no. No chance.
Okay, all right. Yeah. So
I was trying.
So I think I think the details are already out right now. It's no longer a secret that Baba will be coming to Washington, D.C.
Mr. Raila Odinga, please.
Yes.
Use the names, please.
Yes,
correct.
Raila Amolo Odinga.
Well, no.
Wait, Micah, please. Ali, carry on.
Wacha nikwambie kitu moja. If you say Raila Odinga without saying Baba, you're respecting the name.
Honorable
Raila
Amolo Odinga.
Okay.
Honorable, right honorable. Say it properly.
Okay, Right Honorable Prime
Use your
Minister.
Saskia.
use your
You see?
Yeah.
You see sasa hapa ni I'm being cornered. It's 4 versus 1.
no, use your just use your ask me. I just say that if we give you a potato, you'll eat it.
Excuse
That's all.
me.
So
I can't say it's
okay, okay. Let's
Rory.
let's get focused. Let's stay focused.
light
Oh, sorry,
honorable.
sorry.
Yeah.
Light honorable.
So Right Honorable Prime Minister Tinga Raila Amolo Odinga will be coming to the United States. He will be hosted by the DMV community on the 24th of April, which is going to be a Sunday, at a venue called the Camelo, an event center in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. That's in the outskirts of Washington, D.C. He's actually coming for different engagements in Washington, D.C. that week, but his first stop is going to be a town hall, a meet the people, a greet the people tour. So, for those who are local to the area, like mark your calendars, tutawekea, like Eventbrite hapo. And even for those people who are out of state, wanaalikwa. And this is for all Kenyans, whether you're a member of UDA.
Is there a fee? Unajua kuna watu waga wanaulizaga because saa zingine si waga tunaonaga kuna kafi.
No, this is free. This event is free of charge. It's open to everyone. And we will post the Eventbrite link up for those who might be interested in it. And this is open to all Kenyans, whether you're UDA, CCM, CCU, KANU, Fodasili, whatever party. It's for all Kenyans. And the event will be featuring Jabali Africa. So it's going to be an interesting event. But now, outside, just the event itself, I have a question for the panel here and also to the people who are tuned in, who are listening. Why, the registration process...
Tutapigia kura baba.
No, not even mtapigia kura nani. We know that when it came to registration, the diaspora disappointed. The DC, polling station only registered around 253 voters. And those 253, we know some were from Pennsylvania, some were from Delaware. Not everyone was from DC. So maybe a total of DC people, DC DMV people who registered, maybe a maximum of 150, maybe at most labda ni 180. But here's the question. Why do all presidential candidates from Kenya always like making a stop in DC? You remember UDA presidential candidate William Samoei Ruto was in DC just a couple of weeks ago. This is despite the fact that there are no numbers here. So I just want to see, like your thinking, or maybe why you guys feel like
Let me try
guys
to
are
go first.
always coming to DC.
Before-
Micah, let's start with you.
Let's look at the demographic of people who live in DC. Most of the Kenyans who live in DC that have an interest in Kenyan here do work for organizations that are involved in lobbying and our organizations. We have a lot of guys at the World Bank. We have a lot of guys who work for the various embassies. We have a lot of guys who work for in Amnesty Internationals, like those organizations that do have an influence and a say, and they're not even just working in small positions, like you said, just a regular worker and employee. These are people who are stakeholders in where they are and what they do. And with them interacting with most of these people, and with them trying to get to understand most of these people who are around here, it's easier than most DC people are the ones who deal with the embassy a lot. So it's more like them getting to already start building that foreign affairs relationship with these diaspora people, because most of the people, when they come and they have those town halls, there's that interaction of, when we are here, we get this issue from the embassy, blah, 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 this is our services. So they already understand the mood of the diaspora right there on the ground. And it makes it easier for them, let's say, with the change of power, where they come in, for them to know how to build that interaction or how to deal with them. Like, you figure out how you can try to sell your policies to this diaspora market through your embassy, which is supposed to be that relation for you. So it's a place of influence. There are people with influence. it's one of those people who, as I want to take an example of a place like Nantucket. Very few people, but their voice always matters in their surrounding, the political surrounding area where they are. Same thing with the people in DC. Like very few people, very few voices, but the voices that matter, the voices that can whisper something somewhere and can push something. The things that people who can start conversations that can open doors. The same reason this our little show over here has hosted several politicians from back home, because they know that we are like a gateway, we're like a gate for them. Even if they just reach to 5 people who listen to the OneMic show when they were here, those 5 people can spread the word and continue spreading the word and spread the, like it goes, it moves. Like you just need a gateway on how to get in touch with the people over there. So that for me is how I see it.
Okay, all right. So very interesting, like opinion from Micah on why, like DC is always selected, despite the fact that we've had voter registration and, like the numbers did not meet expectations. OmoshFaya, what are your thoughts on why DC is always very prime when it comes to, especially, like presidential candidates and even politicians who are coming to the United States?
I think it's really a logistical thing. The seat of government power in the U.S. is in D.C.
Okay.
So that gels along with the demographic and or population of Kenyans who are in the DMV area, basically D.C., Maryland, Virginia. As well, you have Pennsylvania, which is not too far away. You have North Carolina, which again is not, considering it's not too far away. You have Delaware. You also have New Jersey. And you also have New York. They can all come and congregate within 4 hours. People will be in DC. So it is somewhere that's central, and it's a 2-for-1 for whoever is coming in who's running for office, because you also get to have the ability to talk to politicians here in the U.S. who basically are either going to make or change policies or affect policies that could have something to do with what your upcoming government would be wanting to put into place. It allows you to also come in and have conversations from the highest office, the president, and you have Congress. Then you have what is it? You have you have all the different people who are here basically that one has access to. So DC is a natural place if you're going to come in to the US to start. Then you can work your way and say, okay, you want to do a West Coast, then you want to do like a Midwest or something like that. But DC makes a lot of sense because it's a 2-for-1. Other than the local demographic of the Kenyans, you also have the legislators who are sitting in office that you can have access to, and potentially that means that you could also then be rallying for funds as well from some of these people who, whether they're sitting in Congress, blah, 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 or, people who they influence, or they have lobbyists who come and deal with them, with companies that may want to come to deal with, they may want to even deal with Kenya. Because those lobbyists are all centered in DC. Because, those different companies, like let's say if it's an oil company that's from Texas, they have a lobbyist who's over here, who's, constantly sitting on somebody's, neck in Congress. You come in and those jamas are like, hey, we want to do business with Kenya. Bam, natural, you're here.
Okay.
So it makes a lot of sense if you want to do the political jostling and networking. It makes a lot of sense.
So I think what you're saying, DC essentially is beyond the Kenyans. So the Kenyans are just up by the way.
The Kenyans are they are part and parcel. I don't think to
they're
me
part and parcel of the package.
They're part and parcel of the package, because you see, if you're coming in as a Kenyan legislator, you cannot say that, okay, I'm coming in as a Kenyan legislator or a potential Kenyan legislator, and I am coming in to ignore Kenyans.
Okay.
You can't say that. So when you come in, maybe your target is those congressmen, or the senators, right? But you still have to play it in such a way that that's not the only mission that brought you in, or coming to the World Bank to get funding, or coming to the IMF to get funding, or to try to get policies changed that would help the country, because all those guys, again, those, organizations, again, are in DC, right?
Yeah.
African Union is here in DC. So you could be coming under that guise, but you're not going to ignore your voter base.
Okay.
Because as you've seen, the diaspora have, influence Yamfuko, which then in turn would turn into votes. So if, I'm sending money constantly like we all do, we don't even look at our wallets anymore. We just know that we send money. Now imagine that whoever the recipients are at home, you're like, hey, munendaje ati we are going to vote for hapana, nyinyi mwende hivi. That influence of you sending that money is enough for you to sway that person so that they would go stand in line, change their voting station to go to something that is in your interest as a person who's actually here because of the amount of money that you're sending home. So they take that into consideration and they know that.
Okay.
So it's a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah. It's always, like baffled me why Texas, for example, is not the first place that they go to, because that's essentially the Kenyan capital in the US, whether we like it or not, is in Texas. That's the Kenyan capital of the US. That's where most Kenyans in America, I would say maybe even 1 in 3 Kenyans in the US is probably from Texas. And those are numbers, that I'm just coming up the top of my mind, but there's quite a number of Kenyans who live in Texas. So to me, it baffles me why that's usually not, like a destination. But another thing about DC is that, and this is just from my own personal experience, like in the politics world, Kenyans in DC are the most politically engaged.
Inclined, yeah.
Yeah, and New York to some extent. DC and New York, those are the most politically engaged Kenyans. Like when you talk about, like people who follow Kenyan politics day by day.
Are you sure?
There's a lot of the political engagement, like Kenyan political engagement. DC and I'll tell you, DC and New York, those I would say are the number 1 places in.
They agitate, they
in
show
the
up
US,
for meetings.
And the reason I'm saying that before wanza kushambuliwa na wase wa Dallas, Minnesota. New Jersey. Well, New Jersey is New York. So
Yeah, New Jersey, New York.
Minnesota na uko Dallas.
I'm not saying they're not engaged, but out here people are very engaged. Now you see the other reason why these leaders come here. You saw like when Deputy President William Ruto came, he went to Loyola University to give a talk there. So I think also part of what they try to do.
But I also think that was an invite. So chances are, like say for example, if Texas, the Longhorns University invited him, chances are he would have gone there, and something would have been.
So the choice of DC was not an accident. It wasn't just based on the invite. It was not just based on the invite.
No, but even
if we go,
okay,
go ahead, Micah.
Sorry, I'll say that even if we go by that invite statement of saying that it is by invite, then we see even where the people that are inviting him are in which area, because you have to look at what everybody is saying. Like they come and take and look and say that interaction. I agree with that, because most of the interactions are going to be yes in these 2 cities, because why? Even the people in that city, like the locals, not locals, Kenyans, but the locals in that city, we look at it in a point of whereby we're trying to build a relationship through certain programs, and the best way to do what? Local engagement, especially with local politics for these people in these countries. So I see where Ali is coming when they say that these are the people who do consumption of Kenyan politics, is because that even the areas where they live itself, the people who are non-Kenyan have an involvement, they have an interest in that local politics. So make it easier for coordination between the Kenyans and non-Kenyans to actually go out and seek that local politics. It totally makes sense when you look at it from that area. That is why you get these invitations coming from the university. Yes, the University of Texas can invite Baba. Why?
Now, and
Loyola can invite Baba because the Kenyans here who they know interact with this. Like you see, there's an interest like with universities which are here, which will probably be some of the best courses they're offering international relations, or something to do with that international politics, and totally makes sense.
Now, don't get me wrong. If let's say the Texas, the Longhorns University invited him,
yeah,
chances are of course he would have come. And then locally, there would have been a meet and greet. Something
I
would
mean,
have,
the people too.
Yeah.
something would have happened locally there.
Yeah.
All right. I'm not trying to discount or disprove, the Loyola one, the Loyola invite just being the proximity to DC. However, because you're talking about Baltimore, right? Baltimore
Yeah.
versus, let's say, Silver Spring, because now when you looked at his schedule, it ended up happening either in Lanham or Lanham or somewhere else. But what I'm saying is, sometimes also it depends on the invite. If the invite is somewhere in, let's say, Oklahoma or Wyoming or Nebraska,
Yeah.
ataenda, because if it's an invite, ataenda, and then chances are locally the organizers over there will organize something local. It just so happens that when the invites happen to be from Loyola, proximity to the DC, happen to.
But now here's the thing, like these invites, like always come from schools out here. I remember Baba, like before this was during the coalition government. He did a talk at I think it was George Washington University in DC.
Are you sure it wasn't American?
No, it wasn't American. I think it was
Which
George
one
Washington.
which one did we go for, America? Oh, that wasn't.
I think that might have been a different one, because that one for George
Okay.
Washington, even Uhuru came, because Uhuru at that time was a minister for finance.
Okay.
And I even have like a picture with him, but that's a story for another day.
You get your pictures never come out.
But that's a story for another
You
day.
were Choma negative.
No, they are classified. Those are classified pictures. You
Have
can't
you
just
ever seen a
Zile
picture?
pic-
Have you
zile
ever seen a
pictures
picture of
za Raila,
Ali
zile za-
that Ali
No,
has?
no,
Eh?
CEO Choma negative.
like a nonsense.
Yeah, but anyway, the reason why, so you see, the other reason why I think leaders also like coming to these capitals, because they also go to London. Remember, London, both Ruto and Baba went to speak at Chatham House. Chatham House is a think tank. DC here is a capital of think tanks.
There are many.
Baba has come before to speak at the Center for
Brookings.
Strategic and Intelligence Studies. Brookings.
Yep.
I think there's Atlantic Council where Uhuru went and spoke. So I think and these are think tanks that actually have influence on American foreign policy.
Correct.
Like some of the people who work there are former State Department employees, are people who worked in government before. So
Yeah,
there's
political
usually
science, Ninis.
So when it comes to the sausage making process of marinating foreign policy issues, like right now Kenya and US are still negotiating on a trade agreement, these institutions and what they write and what their opinions are actually matter. And that's the reason why they come. And then of course there's the credibility, just the credibility of being seen, like as a president. Now people are starting to get to know you. Congressmen, like attend some of these think tank sessions. They're gonna start knowing, okay, this is the president of Kenya. I think my district can do business with Kenya. So those are some of the things that are usually done, like behind the scenes. And those are just some of the reasons why, these are the preferred destinations for prospective presidents, and even for president. But when you come as a president, of course, now it's a different situation because you're being handled by the White House. But again, reminding listeners, the 24th of April, it's going to be a Sunday. So those politically engaged people from Texas, we are challenging you to come and see Baba. And of course, we have a lot of comments that are coming in. Stephen is saying Labda Baba wants to enjoy fish hapo Swahili Village. And then he says, I think it's more to do with invite. I believe Kenyan in Texas are still engaged. It's just that the White House precincts are close by, make DC a better option. Now, when I talk about political engagement, I also talk about, I'm also talking about issues like money. These events, like they cost money to hold. And that's how you know the regions that are politically engaged and the ones that are not. And then here's not pitting one region against another. In Minnesota, for example, there's engagement in Minnesota, but the engagement.
Unarusa my police station.
Apana, me, I'm just saying because I'm very involved, in political processes, Kenyan politics here in the US.
Na si state lakini uko deep
Niko
inside.
knee deep in this game.
Na si
The game.
state.
But
Is he wearing gumboots?
But you see, states like
Overalls.
states like Minnesota, they are politically engaged, but the engagement is slanted towards Kisii politics. You know, Minnesota is very influential.
Yadi Ali, you actually
No,
said that with a straight
Yes,
face.
I did. Minnesota is very influential when it comes to Kisii politics. They are they are highly influential.
And
Do you,
Dallas.
do you remember there was a comment when we had our boy who was over here?
You're talking about Gishana,
Jeffrey Chui.
Yes.
Gishana.
And these are the same people.
No,
I'm just asking for a friend.
No, I'm just saying, you know, and here, you know,
No,
like,
but you're right.
Yeah.
You're actually right.
Mhm.
And we would even venture to say the same for Somali Kenyans. We would venture to say the same thing because remember, who was that guy who had come here on the show?
Hassanen.
No, was it Wasame?
Wasame.
Wasame,
Remember,
yeah.
and he was even running for
Minnesota.
yes, and there is a huge Somali Kenyan.
But now you see the interesting thing
Contingent.
about Somali Kenyans in Minnesota. I feel like they kind of align with the Somalis because they're more interested in the local Minnesota politics.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so you see, like they have transitioned. They have transitioned to the point where they're like, okay, this is our home. Let's deal with this as our home.
Yes.
Na bado kuna wale wameshikilia nyumbani. Lakini it doesn't mean that even though they've transitioned to the local, that they don't have influence of what's going on at home.
They do have influence. They have the money.
Exactly.
But you see the other problem that I think, you know, like Kenyan Somalis face when it comes to Kenyan politics in the US, they're always viewed as outsiders. Always, you know, like and this is a problem across the board. You know, like I for instance, you know, like I mean, I'm not a Somali, but I've been viewed as an outsider. You know, like I got into that space by force.
Ali Yaragaidi.
No, I got into that space by
Gaidi.
force.
Now, what are we supposed to think? I mean, Gaidi ni Gaidi. Sasa tunataka kufanya nini?
I got into that space, you know, like by force because there's this thing of certain, you know, like, and not to mention any community, but the big 5 communities in Kenya, you know,
Yes.
like there's this tendency to view sometimes other people, because a lot of times, you know, like people have asked me that question, you know, like, well, you know, where in Kenya, you know, because of my name, and I'm like, one out of every 5 Kenyans is a Muslim. So why should you be surprised when you see, you know, like someone who has a name like Ali and in Kenya? But this is an issue. This is another issue
That's
for another
interesting.
day. And you see, for Somalis, it's
Very
even worse.
interesting.
Yes.
Yes, it's worse for them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's worse for them because they are visibly Somalis.
And now that you've brought that up, the border towns, people born at border towns, that is in of itself is a freaking issue with even just getting an ID.
It's an issue.
And then you're treated like a different thing. You remember you brought it up about, you know, when you know, like when you are going to get ID, unaambiwa ati we nenda ukachukue ya babu na
Yes.
ya nyanya. Urudi na ID zao. Ndio
Yes.
tujue for sure you're a Kenyan.
You see the border is an issue. The borders have an issue. But when I talk about, you know, like Kenyan Muslims, it's more of a social issue.
Correct.
Yeah, it's more of a social issue.
Yes.
It's beyond, you
Yes.
know, like
Yes.
like government services.
But we all went to school with Muslims. In
Yeah.
fact, I don't get it. In fact, I remember even in primary school, that's when you really realized that Kenya is very, should I say open or diverse when it comes to religion? Like from what I saw, where we had, because we used to have everything was Christian Union related, or should I say Christian related. Then at some point, then now we ended up having what is it called? You know, we ended up having when people are branching out. You know, if you're Catholic, you go to the Catholic room. If you're Muslim, you go to the Muslim room. You're allowed to wear, you know, your for the ladies, you're allowed to wear the leggings, you know, along with your dress, cover your head. You know, there are some who even changed their names. You know, from what is it called? They changed their names from let's say if I was called Mudhoni, and you know the Paros changed to become Muslims, and you know she became Jasmila, changed her name to Jasmila, and everybody, you know, they went with it. So from my perspective, with what I saw on the outside, and again, I was not you who went through the Kenyan school system as a Muslim, but what I saw, it was that we were very, very open in relation to all of that. It's something that I actually saw happening, especially in primary school. I didn't see so much of it in secondary school, where there was that, if you're a Muslim, okay, you go here. If you're a Christian, you go here. If you're a this religion, go here. But in primary school, I actually saw that division happening. So, I realized that. But our social engineering, when it comes to religion, especially with Muslims, I still don't get it, because it's like that one of, okay, those are Muslims, wacha wakaitua hapo, sisi tuko huko. That part I don't get. And I don't know if.
But Omosh,
yeah.
Let me say this. And I think also, and chances are, my guys might disagree or agree. I mean, at some point, we, Kenya being a Christian nation,
Okay.
Christian,
Okay.
puts let's say, not as so, because you look at Muslims and just say, those guys over there. Because ideally everything is supposedly Christian. Whatever you do, however you function, we seem to be the only, it's like Kenya, when it comes to Christianity, it's a monolith. Christianity is the monolith in the 254. Not knowing that kuna there are Hindus, there are Korea, there are Muslims or whatever. It's like it's a foregone conclusion. Those ones wacha wakai kando. And I think for me, when that guy, when he talked about religion is an opium of the masses, is it the masses of the opium, whichever it is. When you look at it, I won't even go far. 2020, after the elections, when you have evangelicals chanting, praying, fasting outside in Arizona, outside the polling where votes are being counted, for Trump to win or for something to happen or whatever.
The guys who are waiting for the spirits from Africa.
Those ones.
Mm-hmm.
And that leaves, and these are the same guys probably who would be willing to donate $20, $15, $20, $30 to Africa for water or boreholes or whatever. But when the rubber meets the road, I get jaded by that.
You see, like when it comes to Kenya, there's a hypocrisy and a willful blindness. Like remember when there were those issues that were happening, like the bombings and the attacks. What I noticed is that yes, there are people who may not be, like maybe they were not outwardly, like saying Islamu na nini, but people were allowing it. I had to go to a forum where people were having a conversation of someone that I went to university with, and I was just observing, and I'm like, man, is this what you thought of me? Because he made, like a very xenophobic comment against Muslims. It was a forum with so many people. So me, I was there silently. So I went and asked him, like, dude, and we were very good friends. Is this really what you thought of me? Is this really what you think of me? When we were in university together, the guy disappeared and he blocked me.
What?
And I never saw him again. Yes.
That's what he felt.
So, and you see, the thing is, like when these things are happening in our absence and people are wanaendelea kuchochea
Programming.
which is what was happening. That's where, like I think I kind of, like got a bit shocked at where, there are people who are naturally hateful, but to me, it's the people who fan on or just play willful blindness.
Yeah, I recall me asking you, Ali, are there any leaders, sheikhs, who have come together to repudiate, let's say, like what the ISIS Al-Shabaab, and ISIS. I think it was more or less ISIS. Okay, most of those fringe groups.
Yeah.
And I remember I think you sent us a link where there was more or less like a statement made by sheikhs and clerics, guys who are knee deep in the Quran and the teachings and stuff, talking against that. And then you also talked about hadiths, messages, and then you said something like, sometimes people take one passage and then they twist it and then to fit their narrative. And you know what that made me think? It made me think of the narratives that Christians themselves have actually taken to fit the narrative for their own purposes. For example, this thing of 310, Malachi 310. This one of inaitwaje tithing.
10%. Yeah.
Tithing. That they've taken a small whatever. But in reality, when listening to scholars and biblical scholars, the only persons who are supposed to collect tithes are people who are the descendants of Levi. That lineage.
Yeah.
I don't think we have any descendants
The
of
Levites.
the Levites uko 254 or Nigeria or whatever. And I think for me that opened a perspective where how people can take, let's say, a religious passage and then exploit that for their own benefit. It happens so much in Christianity.
But you see, the other, like what I started evolving on is I started thinking, like when shit goes down, like when Al-Shabaab does something or when Boko Haram does something, why is it that Muslim clerics are expected to say something? And to me, like I started thinking about that because when the Lord's Resistance Army in Uganda is killing people, Christian clerics are not expected to say anything. They're not blamed for being silent.
Right.
When KKK, for example, that uses some extreme version of Christian ideology, when that happens, pastors, priests are not expected to say anything. But then when some random guy in a desert in Syria does something Mimi, Ali Badawy, who's a nobody, I'm being asked, how come Oja condemn? So I've always wondered, like, why, why are we expected when something happens, something that we have no idea about,
100%.
that we don't know about, why are we expected to come out? And then when the converse happens with people who are preaching, like an extreme version of Christianity, it's not expected of the other people. And to me, this is where that hypocrisy, and this hypocrisy sometimes comes from your friends. They're like, but wewe huku nini? Wewe huku condemn? You seem like you are a sympathizer. And I think, like that's part of the problem that, like kind of started creating these divisions. We are still going to talk about the Simcard registration in the social segment. Hii conversation ya sijui Raila na nini took a bit of extra time na think tank.
This guy who became a cleric.
What?
Uno
ndio alitupeleka down this path.
Uno amekuwa shake leo.
Yes, and he didn't, and he was not even using, it was a dark path. He was a dark path bila torch.
Sini random.
You guys see, you use a torch. I use a torch so we see where we are going. You can't just be walking down and telling us that kuja tu tuendelee.
Is everything okay at home?
Saskia.
All right, sawa. With that said, this is it for the news and politics hour. I want to thank the panel for their candid contribution, but we want you to stay tuned for more that's coming up. Uno, remind the viewers real quick what we'll be discussing in tonight's social segment.
It's very simple. Ukiachwa, achika. Ingia bafu, oga, rudi soko. Ukiachwa, achika. Ingia bafu, oga, rudi soko. The last part was courtesy of Micah, not me.
Okay, ukiachwa rudi soko. So I want you to keep it locked. Yes, keep it locked and stay tuned. Please remember to share our live stream and like our Facebook page. To those streaming on YouTube, this is the point where we say goodbye. but you can join us on our Facebook live stream as the show goes on. And please remember to like, subscribe, and follow us on all our social media handles and keep spreading the word. Mimi ni mtangazaji wenu Ali Badawy, aka Mjukuu wa Masai, and you're still tuned in to the One Mic Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, mabibi na mabwana, this is still an encore presentation of the One Mic Show. Remember, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend that